BBC News is an operational business division of the British Broadcasting Corporation responsible for the gathering and broadcasting of news and current affairs. The department is the world's largest broadcast news organisation and generates about 120 hours of radio and television output each day, as well as online news coverage. The service maintains 50 foreign news bureaus with more than 250 correspondents around the world. Fran Unsworth has been Director of News and Current Affairs since January 2018. The department's annual budget is in excess of £350 million. It has 3,500 staff, 2,000 of whom are journalists. BBC News domestic, global and online news divisions are housed within the largest live newsroom in Europe, in Broadcasting House in central London. Parliamentary coverage is produced and broadcast from studios in London through BBC English regions. The BBC also has regional centres across England and national news centres in Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. All nations and English regions produce their own local news programmes and other current affairs and sport programmes. Following the withdrawal of CGTN's UK broadcaster licence on 4 February 2021 by Ofcom, China banned BBC News from airing in China. The BBC is a quasi-autonomous corporation authorised by Royal Charter, making it operationally independent of the government, who have no power to appoint or dismiss its Director General, and require it to report impartially. However, as with all major media outlets, it has been accused of political bias from across the political spectrum, both within the United Kingdom and abroad. This is London Calling 2LO Calling. Here is the first general news bulletin. Copyright by Reuters, Press Association, Exchange Telegraph and Central News. The British Broadcasting Company broadcast its first radio bulletin from radio station 2LO on 14 November 1922. Wishing to avoid competition, newspaper publishers persuaded the government to ban the BBC from broadcasting news before 7 p.m. and to force it to use wire service copy instead of reporting on its own. The BBC gradually gained the right to edit the copy and, in 1934, created its own news operation. However, it could not broadcast news before 6 p.m. until World War II. In addition to news, government British and Movietone cinema newsreels had been broadcast on the TV service since 1936. With the BBC producing its own equivalent television newsreel programme from January 1948. A weekly children's newsreel was inaugurated on 23 April 1950. To around 350,000 receivers, the network began simulcasting its radio news on television in 1946. With a still picture of Big Ben. Televised bulletins began on 5 July 1954. Broadcast from leased studios within Alexandra Palace in London. The public's interest in television and live events was stimulated by Elizabeth II's coronation in 1953. It is estimated that up to 27 million people viewed the programme in the UK, overtaking radio's audience of 12 million for the first time. Those live pictures were fed from 21 cameras in central London to Alexandra Palace for transmission, and then on to other UK transmitters opened in time for the event. That year, there were around 2 million TV licenses held in the UK, rising to over 3 million the following year, and 4.5 million by 1955. Television news, although physically separate from its radio counterpart, was still firmly under radio news control in the 1950s. Correspondents provided reports for both outlets, and the first televised bulletin, shown on 5 July 1954 on the then BBC television service and presented by Richard Baker, involved his providing narration off-screen while stills were shown. This was then followed by the customary television newsreel with a recorded commentary by John Snagg. On-screen newsreaders were introduced a year later in 1955. Kenneth Kendall, Robert Duggal, and Richard Baker 3 weeks before ITN's launch on 21 September 1955. Mainstream television production had started to move out of Alexandra Palace in 1950 to larger premises, mainly at Lime Grove Studios in Shepherd's Bush, West London, taking current affairs with it. It was from here that the first Panorama, a new documentary program, was transmitted on the 11th of November 1953, with Richard Dimbleby becoming anchor in 1955. In 1958, Hugh Carlton Green became head of news and current affairs. On the 1st of January 1960, Green became Director General. Green made changes that were aimed at making BBC reporting more similar to its competitor ITN, which had been highly rated by study groups held by Green. A newsroom was created at Alexandra Palace. Television reporters were recruited and given the opportunity to write and voice their own scripts without having to cover stories for radio too. In 1987, John Burt resurrected the practice of correspondence working for both TV and radio with the introduction of bi-media journalism, and 2008 saw Tri-Media introduced across TV, radio, and